Square is a payments provider, and they operate out of two segments. So they have a seller side, and they have a consumer side. So the seller side operates with small businesses in mind, in particular the kind of the mom and pop, and it was started by Jack Dorsey and a friend of his. Gosh, 2008ish, I believe, and it started off with that little app. Well, it had a combination of an app and a device that you can connect to your cell phone to process credit card payments. And it's kind of evolved into this, multi-billion-dollar company. Fun fact: Square is the fifth largest bank, air quote bank, in the United States. So that's kind of interesting by market cap.
What number?
Number five.
Wow.
Yeah, over 100 billion in market cap. It's one of the largest. It's bigger than Citibank or Citigroup. I'm sorry.
And they don't even have accounts, right?
No, no. They just started a banking charter actually this year, so they're offering accounts now, bank accounts for businesses, and so the main focus of their business so far has been on the small businesses that allow them to be able to process electronic payments, cards, debit cards, online payments, and stuff. They've also moved to what's called the Cash App, and that is more on the consumer side. So that allows people to use the Cash App to make payments at the stores. They can use it online. They also offer a debit card that you can use online. You can put it in your phone through your Apple Wallet, and it's really slick. I actually used the Square app on my travels over the last couple of weeks, and it was pretty slick. And they also offer, which is kind of cool, they have they're called boosts, and they're little things that you can add to get discounts for different retailers. For example, my daughter loves McDonald's. So as we were driving through McDonald's on my trip, I saved myself $5 on my trip just by the discounts you would earn at McDonald's.
Very interesting. So can you talk about their latest quarter, highlight some of the numbers from that?
Yeah. So latest quarter, Square did very, very well for the quarter. So there's kind of a dichotomy. So the revenues, as you can see here in this little chart, are exploding. They have exploded over the last 5 to 10 years. Over the last few years, they've really, really accelerated. So Square is an interesting company because if you look at, they have two, I guess, main drivers of their revenue right now. Number one is all the businesses that we just discussed. So the seller side as well as the Cash App side, but they also have Bitcoin. Then Bitcoin, since Jack Dorsey has started embracing this whole Bitcoin idea, he has bought a lot of it for the company. It all sits on the income statement, both the gains for Bitcoin as well as the costs for Bitcoin. And right now, there's not a huge gap between the two of them. So they're driving up revenues tremendously because Bitcoin has grown, I think, 50, 60% this year alone. So it's been a huge boon for the company. But if you take that out and you just look at the growth that they're seeing on the other segments of their business, they match the same level of growth. Albeit it's a much slower, and smaller portion of the pie, but they're still seeing tremendous growth in both the seller as well as the Cash App side. So the company has done fantastically well over the last year or so. And they also had a huge announcement. They bought a company called Afterpay, which is part of the buy now, pay later trend that is really kind of sweeping the fintech sector. And really what this is it's a way of extending credit to people in the stores. So let's say, for example, I'm not saying this would happen. Let's say you go to your favorite retailer. And when you go to pay, they offer you the option of splitting up your payment into 4 payments over the next 2 months. Instead of paying $100, you could pay $25 each, every 2 weeks and pay off your purchase. And that's what this is offering. So Afterpay was a company that started in Australia in 2008, and they had grown tremendously, and Square purchased them. They announced the purchase of them for, at the time, it was 29 billion. Now it's up to 33 billion because the prices of both companies have moved a little bit. But the main idea, at least the analysis so far, has been that Square is trying to encompass several things with this. Number one, they're trying to grow the revenues of the company. They're also trying to grow the reach of the company. Right now, Square is primarily in the United States only. It is trying to expand outside of the United States because there's obviously a lot of revenue growth expansion available in there. Afterpay has really gained a hold in Australia, which is where it's founded, but it was starting to branch out here in the United States as well. Additionally, on top of that, it also offers additional services that they can put onto their Cash App platform. The Cash App platform is a huge driver for the company. I think that's really going to help them really kind of escalate to where they're going to go now and into the future. Jack Dorsey did not mention this word in his earnings calls, but super app is something that is kind of really growing in the fintech sector. And if you listen to the PayPal earnings call recently, they used that term 144 times in their earnings call.
How did you count that?
What's that? How did I
count
count that? I went to Control F in the earnings
Oh,
call and
right.
typed it up, and it said it was in there 144 times. So yeah, so I mean, Bitcoin in Square's latest 10Q was in there, I think 120 times. So
Wow.
it's obviously a big thing for Square. But anyway, super app is not a term that Jack Dorsey likes to endorse because he feels like it's too confining, and they want to make sure that their Cash App is not constrained by anybody's preconceived notions of what the app should be. So it's all about the platform, and I think Square is trying to expand their reach so they can drive more people to the Cash App, because that's really, I think, where the revenues are really going to grow. I think he thinks that with Bitcoin and with all the offerings that they're offering, I think that's really what's going to drive the performance for the company.
Do you see that revenue growth as sustainable, or what are some of the biggest risks to the revenue growth?
Well, yeah, I think if you look at the seller side and the Cash App side, I think absolutely there is tremendous opportunity for the company on those two fronts. The small business part of it is something I don't think gets talked about a lot outside of the investment community, but the majority of employers in the United States in particular are actually small businesses, and those are going to grow at leaps and bounds as we start to come out of the pandemic. All the businesses that were closed during that time a lot of those people are going to reopen, or they're going to find other businesses to grow, because that's what entrepreneurs do, and that's kind of how our country is kind of geared. And outside of the United States, there's lots of expansion with that as well. So I think there's going to be tremendous opportunity in the small business area. And as somebody who's worked in the restaurant business in particular for a long period of time, the ability to offer these services and products to small businesses, especially restaurants, is going to be huge, because that's a huge cost. A lot of people don't think about this, but a POS cost to opening a restaurant, depending on which system you look at, it could be a $20,000 to $40,000 outlay, which is a big chunk of change. And if you're a small business and you're looking for an easy, quick way to offer the ability for people to pay online and all these different options that Square offers, it's a great easy sell for those, mom and pop type restaurants. I'm not talking about Applebee's or Olive Garden. I'm talking about, the 50-seat restaurant that, is in a small business in a small town that is looking for that opportunity. And so the biggest risk, I think, depending on which way you want to go with this, Bitcoin obviously is a huge fluctuation, and the ups and downs of that investment that Jack has made could come back to bite him in the butt. Who knows what will happen with that, and with all the regulations and regulatory environment that really seems to be gaining steam here in the United States and outside of the country. Who knows what's going to happen with that? So for me, that's something that has been a concern, and that's one of the reasons why I really haven't taken a dive into the company as far as investing in it, just because of that very fact. If I take away the whole Bitcoin equation, I know that makes me an old fuddy-duddy, and I get that, but if I take away the whole Bitcoin equation from the company, I think it's a fantastic company. It's a great product. It's a great app. It's super easy to use. I mean, it's ridiculous. I opened my Cash App account in less than 2 minutes. At working at Wells Fargo, if I could open an account in less than an hour, it was like a miracle. So, so yeah, it's pretty slick.